And all together now. I like that piece there. Real talk. Alright, family. All together, we shall certainly win. And we are talking about the most important peoples on the planet, as always. We are talking about repairing. We are talking about healing. And a book that is being published, Real Talk, by a brother right here in the studio, our brother Lorenzo Allen and Lorenzo S. Allen. The Hungry Shall Be Fed, Awakening Ancient Spirituality. And we were looking at some of this last strong, and give thanks for Sister Win, who really was touched by the book, last strong. Alright, so what we want to do right now, again, introduce Sister Jenny Grace once again. Greetings, Jenny.
Greetings, thanks for having me on the show again.
Alright, we'll talk, and our brother Lorenzo.
Hello and good morning.
That's better. Great, wonderful. So Lorenzo is, our author, right, of the book, and we have to say thank you, my brother, for making it in today, to
welcome.
the Galaxy Studio. Mm-hmm. And he's very soft spoken for a brother, he's trying to not draw him out, but raise up his energy, a little bit, alright, because this is such an important book. But real talk, and I'll tell you, reading it, it's like the jigsaw, just putting things into place, mm-hmm. and helping to map out, our story, which has happened to, and I know you draw from George James, Henrik Clark, all the other historians and teachers, but what you've done in collating this together is give a narrative that actually says, we are not paying attention to Mother Earth.
That's right. It's gone on way too long, and the situation is, bad enough for everyone to be concerned about it, really. But whether or not that's the case, I doubt it very much. In other words, people need to sort of be woken up to the realities concerning the sort of damage that's been done to the earth.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You also touch on in the book in terms of you're looking at the ancient Commission culture, to use that, to put it in that understanding, mm-hmm. and how spirituality was central to all things.
Yeah, the way I see it, it was like the glue that kept everything running and in a stable condition, because they were totally focused on balancing the Earth's energy, mm-hmm. And they worked out the various different ways of doing that. A lot of it has been lost over time, but mm-hmm. that doesn't mean that it can't be revived and brought back, because the understanding that they had is still relevant to the way we're living now.
Right. What we also get is, from what you're saying, is within the culture, in governing themselves, it was all about being custodians on the planet. It was all about putting something back if you took something out.
That's right.
This was the equation, the balance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A good example that I give is, the situation where people might be out looking for wood.
Yep.
Because they want to make a table, a chair, or whatever. They would make sure that they seek out the dead trees first,
yes.
rather than just go around and chop the first tree that looks as if it's going to be able to do the job, because their attention was on, like I say, repairing any damage that they do to the environment, working with the environment to promote life, basically. Mm-hmm. And they were very good at it. Their mm-hmm. civilization, it lasted for a good 10,000 years, most likely, maybe longer.
Now, the other thing that you say in the book, the Commissions also created the Neteroos,
Mm-hmm.
And okay, you want to say about that?
Well, this is like the essence of the spirituality, and really it was a system that was designed to uplift the nation and let people know that there's a way to enlightenment and eternity, or all the rest of it. It's a systematic process. They set up learning institutions to pass this kind of knowledge onto the younger generations. It's difficult for us to imagine, but a civilization that possibly around for 10,000 years. Can you imagine how much knowledge is going to be generated over that time? So they had established ways of passing it on reliably. The Medu Necha, the hieroglyphics, the Greeks would call it hieroglyphics, but it was their way of printing it in stone, so that now we can go back and try and piece together what was cementing their whole way of life.
And with the Medu or hieroglyphs, what we understand with that specific way of teaching and recording was through pictorial, through imagery.
That's right, symbols. I'm sure it was only the initiated in those times, who could understand the various different higher levels of the Medu Necha, because it wasn't a single language. They had different versions of it, secret versions, and so on. But in general, the main population in Kemet would have understood enough to know what the inscriptions, for example, mean on a temple, so they could, communicate. And it was all geared towards preserving nature, nurturing the environment.
You're gonna keep talking into your mic, brother.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, this was their main focus. The whole purpose of it was to do with rebalancing the Earth system. They understood very early on that the Earth is a single system with subsystems, like the water cycle and certain other systems. I believe there are 4 of them, but one of them is the biosphere. What modern scientists would call the biosphere, all living things, in other words. And all these systems, the 4 systems, the air, the water, the earth itself, and the biosphere, they're all one.
Because when you were speaking about a natural balance in terms of, not overindulging. So nature has that way of making sure, okay, there's enough antelope, for the lions.
Yes.
And the lions won't kill off all the antelopes,
That's right.
or else their food source is gone.
It wouldn't
So
make
there's
sense.
there's a way that nature has worked within a natural order,
Yes.
of things. And again, we're seeing where we as woman beings, human beings, are moving outside of a cycle that is in tune with the earth again. Our foods come in packages,
That's right.
Our foods are more synthetic nowadays, or can be for
That's
some,
right.
the natural organic. So we're seeing people moving away out of that ecosystem, because we are part of that ecosystem.
That's right. The further you move away from it, the less chance you have of long-term survival. Because these systems have been in place long before humans were even on the planet.
Yes.
It's a balance that most likely it's designed to run to infinity.
Right.
No one's got a right to disrupt that and try and end the cycle.
Because in it you also speak of that nature has a way of recalibrating, rebalancing
Yes, renewing things.
itself. Yeah.
That's right.
So if it meant, if nature has to take that which is ailing her, or off of,
it can fight back.
Can
it
fight.
kick back.
Yeah. There you go. Yes.
So
yes.
when the damage is done, destruction, pollution, genocide, wars. Nature has a way of setting things straight. The climate change that a lot of people are worrying about, the way the ancients would have seen that, it's nature fighting back.
Yes.
We don't know the outcome. It's a very long cycle, so we don't know the outcome, but you can be sure at the end of it, there will still be a living planet. Hungry things will still be fed. Hungry creatures will still be fed. This is the meaning of the title of the book.
We're going to get you to read from it, yeah, in a little while, not right away, because we're going to talk a little bit more. Because I want to actually look at why this book, why you actually wrote this book, why this book is being written, the specifics in terms of, you know, what is it that what is being fed, yeah, what are people being fed, what is the nourishment, what is the mineral, what is the food in itself, so one can understand, yeah. But before we go there, Brother Lorenzo, yeah, the Greeks, okay, Greco-Romans, right? And I like that chapter about them,
in Kemet.
and in Kemet, because that kind of sums up in a way, you know, why we're here.
That's right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, what I do in the book is I trace the history of it so that people can follow the sequence to know that things were done differently in the past, and a lot of it's been turned upside down, you know, so that things that we take for granted would have been done most likely in the opposite way in the past.
Right.
So, you know, the Greeks, they picked up on certain knowledge. They knew it was deep, and they wanted to possess it and have it and steal it and imitate it.
I mean, what we understand and we do know, Kemet, Timbuktu, you know, were great learning empires. Give thanks, Father. Were right. Great learning empires, and the knowledge was being given to all. So right. We're saying, you know, Kemet never shut its doors on Europeans, Phoenicians, whoever they were at the time, in terms of learning and the ability to learn what was necessary in terms of applying right law, you know, just law on nature's law on the planet.
That's right. There are stories, ancient stories of Osir, who people might know as Osiris, traveling to other lands to, you know, share the knowledge that he had, and this was all a process of learning that pretty much has led us to where we are now, in certain respects. There has been disruption to it, obviously. But at the end of the day, we're here and we've survived whatever's been thrown at us. We're still here to seek the truth, find out how it works. It's usually something that's simpler than most people even realize, where the purpose in life for ancient societies was to be as natural as possible, to fit into a system and not totally disrupt the ecosystem that we've been blessed with. It's a blessing that we've been put into this system. We can fit in, we can bring changes that are good, you know, for the whole planet and the biosphere. What's happening at the moment, obviously, is that people have strayed away from that. The book maps out the process, you know, through information on people like Charles Darwin, and there are various other actors involved, you know, people who were intent on spreading as much misinformation as possible so that they could steer the ship. But it's a ship, as we were saying before, you know, that has been steered by nature itself for billions of years. It's not now that the Earth is a living planet.
Because what's good within that chapter itself is the idea that we're going to use the word racism, but the idea of Europeans at that point finding Commission or African knowledge, you know, and finding it, being given it, but you know, fearful of telling their own people, you know, of the true originators, authors, right, of these systems, whether it be cosmology, astrology, you know, chemistry, come from chemet,
right.
you know, as we get chemistry, philosophy, science, mathematics, writing techniques, even speech techniques, and all these aspects, you know, was shut down, you know, to Europeans, by Europeans, you know. Not to say all Europeans didn't want to know the truth, because even in looking at some of the Greek, some of the great, you know, thinkers, so to speak, at that time, they were trying to bring out that truth. And was it either Plato or Aristotle?
Socrates, maybe.
Socrates,
yeah, a lot of them, they were aware of the depth of knowledge in ancient Kemet, and at the same time they would have been under strict laws, if you want to call it that, you know, not to divulge everything that they know. The ancient
well, let's be more specific, not to say not to divulge everything they know, not to divulge the fact that you're getting this knowledge from Africans.
Well,
and the African principle is there's no separation with the creator, you know, within all that we know. So that's how we ended up with science and not metaphysics, you know, where they, you know, we understand that, and that's what we're seeing, you know, is that was the, you know, when we see a sign doing a crime scene, and how did, you know, that's that point there, you know, hey, you try to separate metaphysics, you know, you know what I'm saying, into politics and science, you know. But as you're saying, as you in the book, theology and spirituality was never separated. It was never seen as a separate system.
That's right. The Greeks were under certain pressures, you know, from the Roman Catholic Church, because they obviously had their doctrine, and if you went against that, there were serious consequences. So the pressures that would have been on the Greeks who found out certain knowledge from ancient Kemet would have come from different angles. You know, you got the church being down your neck, so you can't mention certain things, even that the earth is round. That would have been a big problem. At the same time, most likely, most of the ancient Greeks who went to Egypt, they studied there. Pythagoras, for example, stayed for 23 years studying. Most likely, that's how long it took him to get to the higher levels. And to get to those levels, he would have had to have, you know, sworn oaths that he's not going to reveal information. Certain things weren't written down, which is why a lot of the Greek philosophers and people who studied in Kemet, it was easy for them to put their name on it, you know, because the real inventors of this type of spirituality and learning systems as well